Hey guys, welcome to the Not Bad Better podcast. We're your hosts, Luke and Luke.
On this podcast, we interview people much smarter than us and ask questions about how they've created a life that they love.
Follow along with us weekly as we learn about strategies that we can use to improve our own lives.
We hope this is beneficial. We aim for this to be applicable in your own life so that you can grow with us. Wow. What an intro.
Yep. That's our continued welcome.
We have to work something else out, I reckon.
We do. Today we've got Jessie Ballantyne, a family friend of more my family than yours, really. Jessie, say g'day, Jessie.
Hey, how you going? Nice to be here.
It's awesome to have you. So Jessie is what you'd call a serial entrepreneur, I think. So Jessie is the founder or co-founder with her husband, Justin, of the Grants Hub, which has been running for over 10 years now, hasn't it? It's just been your 10th birthday.
9th birthday, but yeah,
Birthday.
so it was a 12 months development before that. So sort of 10 years for me, 9 years of operations.
Yeah, double digits is good.
Yeah.
And has recently, or I say recently, in the last couple of years, started Hey Good Thing as well, which is an online business that you've got going. As well as this writing online, podcasting with season 2 of Grants Uncovered coming out soon.
Yep. Getting into Grants webinars, a few different things on the go.
Yeah. I think living the life that a lot would want to live in terms of not showing up to a boss every day and doing it all yourself. So do you want to just give us the backstory and sort of how you've got here? That would be great.
Yeah, sure. Firstly, great to be here. I've known both Luke and Luke for quite a long time. Luke Smith for longer than Luke Morrison. But absolute pleasure to be here with you guys. I think this podcast is awesome. So full credit to you for putting it out there. And I was thinking beforehand, the fact that you want to like interview people and get that input from people who you've said are smarter than you. I definitely don't think I'm smarter than either of you. You're both highly intelligent people. But I was
that out.
that better stay in. I'm going to check that. I know that you are both smarter than me. But I do think it's important to keep learning through life. And I was thinking about that, just this morning in different ways, no matter what stage we're in life. Like our parents can teach us certain things, our teachers can teach us certain things, but I think it's so important to keep learning. So I think this podcast is really cool.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
So no, pleasure to be here. I grew up in Western Victoria with my parents. So they were wheat and sheep farmers there. And then, like, cutting that story very short, when I was about 8, we moved across to Gippsland, across the other side of Victoria. And it was really when I was in high school and fell in love with French, believe it or not, that I first got into business. Now, how does that all fit together? I just loved French so much. So country girl in a country school, just loved French. I was about the only one, I think, in the whole year level who enjoyed French. Our French teacher got a really hard time because most people didn't like the subject, whereas I just looked forward to it every week. But then we had another French teacher come in, and she had been an interpreter at the Winter Olympics, I think it was, in Japan. She could speak both Japanese and French. So she was there interpreting in 2 different languages, plus English, obviously. And I'm just like, that's incredible. Like, there's this whole world out there that is so beyond this world that I'm in here, this little Gippsland world. And she really encouraged me to pursue that. Like, so I fell in love with France, and she encouraged me to be an exchange student. So I had my heart set on that. That's what led to business, because mum and dad didn't have enough money. Really, we had enough, but not like extra money to pay for me to just go on an exchange for 12 months. So we worked out that I would fundraise and work my butt off after school to raise about half the money, and then they paid the other half. So when you're before an employable age, I think I was 14 maybe when I started, 13 or 14 in business. The way to earn money before you're legally employable is to start your own businesses. So that's what I did.
Wow.
And what were those that are?
A mixture. So
mowing
the
the
number
lawn?
one, what was that?
Mowing the lawn.
Oh, that was the brother's job. So no, I should have. That would be probably better pay than what I did now that I think about it. I baked. So this was the best profit margin. I baked thousands, literally, of biscuits. There were 3 varieties. There was, I can still remember, ginger snaps, chocolate chip, and Anzac biscuits. Mum helped me work out what would be the, highest profit margin. She's not like she's from a family of business people, but not in business herself, but clearly knew about profit margins and the simplicity of baking something simple, repeating the same method, making the biscuits the same size, buying one size of bag that they could all go in. So I'd bake these, bag them. Mum and Dad would take them all to the school where they both worked, sold them in like their staff rooms. And this was before Facebook. Like you couldn't sell on Marketplace. So it would be, just selling these biscuits in so many different places. So that was a really good seller. I also sold books through like a party plan system. That was through local book parties that people obviously at my age now, I look back, they were very generously supporting me and buying these books. They were great books, but like I was pretty young when I think about it now. And Mum and Dad, or mostly Mum, would drive me to Melbourne for these book parties on the weekends or a Thursday night, so did a lot of that. I catered for birthday parties. So someone at the church that we were going to had a 40th and she got me to cater for like 100 people. So I would just bake for weeks, like cooking homemade sausage rolls. I'd do all of this after school, put them in the freezer, like catered for this whole birthday party. And then I think still the standout fun one was chocolate coated snakes. So like literally buying snakes, dipping them in chocolate, bagging them up and selling them from the school locker. That was fun. And there's another friend I've got and he was selling similar things and toffee. He would do homemade toffee and that was really cool. We both sold a lot. He is in entrepreneurship and highly successful in what he's gone on and done. Unfortunately, the school tuck shop started losing money, so they shut us down. So the school didn't, really bag entrepreneurship too well back then. They just shut our operations down on us.
Wow.
Anti-competitive behaviour from the school canteen.
You have to get the ACCC involved there. Jeepers.
Yeah, look at that. And that was before like food handling. I sound like I'm really old, but I'm only 39 in case anyone's wondering. But that was before food handling was a big thing. So we could, legally sell these things, I guess. But so all of that combined. So just working really hard after school and on weekends because I had a goal and business for me was the way to get there.
Yep.
Wow.
Awesome. That's pretty direct line to what you're doing now, I think, in terms of making your way sort of on your own with your business is pretty cool. I think there's a lot of reflection there in sort of people, including you, that you see start something that they really, really want to do on their own, start selling something or giving a service and then doing something that's even bigger later on. But yeah, so how is that? Oh, you go. Sorry.
No, I was going to say it wasn't a direct route into what I'm doing now. So like it kind of was, but life can take these different paths. And so like I got to Belgium in the end and I spent a year over there. Halfway through year 11 I went, did 12 months, came back and finished year 11. So lost a year of Australian schooling. And then this is a whole other story that we won't get into today, but did year 12 by distance education while traveling around Australia in a caravan with my family. So that was pretty crazy too, but that sort of need to be self-managed and be motivated and, self-driven and learn how to research yourself. They were all really important skills. Adaptability, resilience, all of that was probably fairly consistent throughout my upbringing. As well as, mum and dad being fully supportive of me pursuing that dream that I had to go to Belgium. And I think when there's people that can believe in you or that support you, that makes a huge difference to what you do too. But I've also done, pharmacy jobs when I was old enough. So working for other people was really important too, I think, to make me a better employer now that I am. Worked in a cheese factory. I've worked in local government. I worked for an aid and development organisation. So I studied a Bachelor of International Studies and then a Master's of International Development. So I've done that aid and development background and then kind of landed in grants, which then led to the Grants Hub.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, getting into that now, what sparked this idea of Grants Hub? Because I've looked at the business I reckon right at the start of this year, you popped up on my LinkedIn Discover People, and being a new person on LinkedIn just went through everything. the business is really, really interesting. What got you started on this idea of uncovering grants for businesses and councils and whatnot? Yeah.
So I landed in grants. I never intended to be a grants professional. So some grants people that end up in grants and business combined are grants professionals who land in business, whereas I'm probably more a business person who's landed in grants.
Yep.
Not realizing I was a true business person until probably 5 years ago. Like I just did things. I didn't really think, I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. Like I just did stuff. I could see a problem and just solve it. That was me. Like it was someone else who said, you're an entrepreneur. And then it's kind of just kept coming up again and again and again. So I worked in grants in international aid and development because fundraising and seeking grant funding is essential to running the projects and programs that I was sort of involved with. That was my first introduction to grants. And then when we got married, my work had been a lot of overseas travel and I didn't want to do as much of that when I got married. So moved into local government in a really fantastic grants job at the city of Casey, so in the southeastern suburbs of Melbourne. That was a fantastic job. Like I loved it. Part of the job was applying for big state and federal government grant programs on behalf of the city of Casey. So say the big swimming pool at Cranbourne, it was the water filtration system that I was applying for grant funding for. It could have been playgrounds or youth programs. There was a huge diversity. The other part of the job was to reduce the local community's dependence on council's own grants program. So within the city of Casey, there's about 2,000 community groups. That's too many groups that the council can fund. Like there's not enough local government funding to support that. So they wanted me to come in and help capacity build the local community groups in finding and applying for grant funding. So I just saw this need. I'm like, okay, how can I do this on these limited hours that I've got? What's the best multiplying factor, really? Like, how can I launch something that has this growth aspect to it? It's probably scalable now that I look at it. So I did face-to-face workshops. I started compiling lists of grants and making my own little Word document with just lists of grant funding in it. And I would keep that updated and email it out to people. I started collecting their email addresses. Like now, this is all list generation. Like these are all 101s of business. I was just doing what I could see was a problem and I could see a solution to it. So it kind of just sparked from there. And then when we started having kids, so when my first daughter was born, again, living in regional Victoria, didn't want to have to work full time. We didn't want to have to move into the city for more work opportunities. I'm like, I can see this grants need. I'm living in regional Victoria. I need to find employment. I'll just create something that can then fund myself and solve the problem that I can see. So that was the backstory to the Grants Hub. Then just literally started on butcher's paper. Like I've still got it, drawings. And I called my brother because he's web design. So I called him and we'd go and meet up. He'd catch the train down from Melbourne and we'd sketch out these plans that it very much looks like, some of those initial ideas are still what we can see at the Grants Hub now. And how can we make grants more accessible in Australia and make sure that everyone can find out about grant opportunities really easily? With tech being a focus and a visual element being a focus, no one else was doing that.
Yeah.
It's that, the core idea of a business is solving someone's problem. And that is very, very apt there in terms of just, there's that many opportunities for grants for people. And if no one's doing it, there's a massive demand for it and someone's got to fill that demand, don't they? And they'll do well.
Yeah. And so with choosing business ideas, they really say, don't be afraid if someone else is doing it either. Like that means there is a business, there is a viable market. You need to do it better or you need to do it differently. So that's what we've always tried to do at the Grants Hub, and we've built member support in a real sense of community. Giving is a huge part of my why, like my reason for being in business. So running our own grants programs, which we've just been able to increase more and more over the years. The visual elements that I said, being more tech, definitely more front runners in the tech space. All of those things are probably what have created that really loyal membership base that we've got at the Grants Hub.
Awesome. The other thing, I think we might just spend a little bit of time sort of on the Grants Hub and talk about that, and then maybe step into Hey Good Thing as well, or definitely after that. One thing that a lot of these online businesses and workplaces, like not workplaces, people that work for themselves online, but also are creating things and putting things out into the world, sort of believe strongly in is a strong community, which you've spoken about, and not a customer base, but loyal people that are part of your brand and your company. With your email subscribers and your list of emails that are going out to people, do you find that to be a really important part of sort of driving people towards grants that they can get to? So I guess my question is, how helpful is that email subscriber base in relation to just word of mouth and whatnot?
The email list is like the whole core of the business. So our grants database is what they're paying for and our support, but the list is like number one. Like you've got to have your tech, that's knowing you've got to have your tech right. You have to make sure everything operates. You need to invest in making sure you've got your security, all your things, there's all of that stuff. But if you want to talk about loyalty in a business sense, conversions, acquisitions, retentions, lifetime value, all of that, your list, it all comes back to your list. And you'll read this more and more if you guys are spending any time on LinkedIn. You would see it more and more in online space and SaaS. Subscription as a service businesses. So if people subscribe to something that's called a SaaS business, if you're paying a subscription fee, we don't own anything on social media. Like our Facebook account got shut down. We had 10,000 followers, I think, a couple of years ago. And one day I just woke up and they just shut our page down. Like it was just gone. Like we had no idea why. And it was such a reminder that we can't just invest in one marketing stream or one place to communicate with our people. Like Instagram changes all the time. The algorithms change constantly. Google Ads changes all the time. Like it all just constantly changes. Your list is the only thing that you've got control over in maintaining and protecting people's data, and then also sharing the information with them that they need to know. So if we know about a grant, we know we can email that to them and they'll get the email. Whereas if we post that on social media, they might see it, but they probably won't see it. Like it's more unlikely that they won't see it there. It's also a place where you can, like for us, we've built relationship with people. So, mostly we're about grants, but then people are also really interested in the story behind it or the reason why we're in business. Or I've shared a bit about the startup years and this is a whole other thing we could talk about today, but launching and then my, brand new baby being in open heart surgery a couple of weeks later. And like, just, all of that. Members are really, really interested in that stuff. So I think people are interested in not just the product you offer, but the story and the people behind the business. I think personally we'll see a stronger trend towards that. It's that sense of community and bringing people together that is so important. People don't just want a grants product. Like they can get that in other places. It's like any membership or any business. You can get your coffee from how many cafes around where you live, but if you get a relationship with your local barista or cafe, you're more likely to keep going back there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I guess a lot of people are turning away from this email newsletter sort of thing now, which is, I guess, interesting to see, given that, as you say, like when you're putting a message out on social media, it feels more like a message to the world at large. Whereas when you're actually communicating on a frequent basis, more personally in the inbox of somebody's email, I guess they see that you're making an effort to have a relationship with them in some way.
And they can unsubscribe, if they're members of ours, they don't unsubscribe because they want to receive the grants information that they're paying for. But if someone's done a free trial with us and they don't want to be on that list anymore to hear about a couple of grants for free every week, then they can unsubscribe from that. And obviously we respect that. That's just, you can't not do that. You can't just send emails to people that they're not subscribed to. That is actually illegal. But yeah, it's super important. And growing that list, it's been more and more important. So as the list grows, from a business perspective, it also gives you opportunities to diversify your revenue streams, because then you can start selling advertising, because some funders or some grant writers, they want to get their name or their grant program in front of people. We've got an active grant seeking list of people that's like nearly 30,000 people on the list. Like they want to get their name out there. So then you've got these alternate revenue streams too, which is healthy for a business to have multiple revenue streams.
Yep.
This is probably a silly question to ask. How widespread is your reach across Australia at the minute in terms of grants from around the country?
So the grants themselves, so we aim to have every grant available in Australia listed on the Grants Hub. So we obviously do miss some, but that is the aim. So like on any given day, you could log in, there'd be over 1,500 open grants. In our complete database, there's like over 5,000. So some that, are not open now, or we know they'll open in a few months' time, or they are older programs that every time there's a change of government, like we've got again now, grant programs change. So some of them are like archived grants, if you want to put it that way. But we have a grants researcher. This is not just me now, it's far beyond just me at the Grants Hub. So we've got a whole team. So a grants researcher and a grants strategist, and they spend a lot of their whole jobs are to keep that up to date and making sure our members have got grants information, not just about the grants themselves, but some trends that we see across as well. But yeah, all grants right across Australia are all on there.
Wow. And how many employees do you have? I guess co-workers.
I should have brought my team page up before you asked me this. We have got a grants researcher and grant strategist. Then we've got a developer. We've got a mix of subcontractors as well as employees. My husband, Justin, he resigned from his teaching job about 5 years ago and joined. He's our operations manager, acting CEO actually at the moment. And then we've got subcontractors in design and development, ads. There's an ad specialist. That's a really niche area. Marketing, accounting, obviously. Apologies if I've forgotten anyone on our team, but that's pretty much everybody.
And you need a strong team, I guess, to get that.
Definitely.
Reach.
Team is crucial. Yep. So you could do some core business without a team, but I think when you're someone with my personality too, you like doing new things. Like I don't want to sit there and keep updating all of the grants and maintaining that database. Like that would bore me. So like I need new things. You need to know yourself when you're in business and what are you strongest at. And most, if we want to call me an entrepreneur, I still struggle with it. But, if that's my skill set, very few entrepreneurs are good at running businesses. So we're great at starting businesses. We're not so good at running businesses and operations and systems. That's not what most entrepreneurs are good at. We're really good creatives, problem solvers, growers of things, but not the other stuff. So I think to run a successful business, you need to firstly start it, and then you need to get the people in who are good at doing all the stuff that you're not good at.
Yeah. Has that pushed you into more of a management role now within the business? Obviously, you're still one of the key factors in growing it, but has that shifted also part of your role into managing people and developing people?
So I was CEO. I took the title because we didn't have a CEO, and I was a CEO, but I've never wanted to be a CEO. It's just never been an aspiration of mine. I don't resonate with so much about what CEOs need to do and what they're good at. Like it's just not me. Like I like more the creative side. I like all of that stuff. So I did it for a couple of years, but I did hit burnout. I've hit burnout a couple of times. So that's, something that you've got to recognize what is causing these recurring burnouts. CEO for me was definitely one of them. Just spending so much time doing something that I didn't love and didn't feel like was playing to my strengths. There's not much worse, I don't think, in the grand scheme of work life, than having to turn up to a job each day, even if you own the business, and doing something you really don't want to do every day. So if you can get yourself out of that, then it's a smart move to do that. So now my role is founder, because that's kind of really broad, obviously, but it still gives that nearly like the face or even some of this sort of stuff, like being on podcasts or webinars, some of those things. or my name maybe is known a bit more than some of the others, say on LinkedIn and things, but also business strategy. So that's definitely the area that I'm more in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. I really like that point that you just made about it doesn't matter if you own the business. If you turn up and don't like it,
yep,
it's not worth it at all, really, is it?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah. There might be a whole heap of money in it, but if you hate it. Yeah.
It reminds me of that Gymshark business. The guy started Gymshark. Obviously, this is nothing like Grant's Hub, but he did the exact same thing. I think he started his business and founded it, like sort of ran as CEO, and he found he was getting burnout.
Yeah, he hated being a CEO.
Yeah. And then a few years in, he was like, you know what, I need someone else to do this for me. And now his day looks different. Well, every single day looks different to him. Is that sort of similar for you? Do you find that every single day is different?
Yep, every single day.
Yeah.
And like the days change. Like yesterday was a classic. Like I could have never predicted what I would have been dealing with yesterday. Like, it's just, and it was just, I was thinking about it coming onto this podcast now, like business is a roller coaster. Like it doesn't matter. For me, my experience hasn't made any difference whether I've been in this for 1 day or 10 years. It's a roller coaster. It's about how you learn to ride that roller coaster. I think that makes the difference. I've been a very slow learner in learning that I need to look after myself, that it's not actually selfish to look after myself. And I think I'm seeing now that I'm trying to do that better, whether that's in terms of exercise or drinking enough water or actually going and getting a massage or whatever it is. Like they definitely make me handle the roller coaster better. Yeah, because it is, every day is so different. And for me now, I'm across multiple businesses, so they're all different anyway. But yeah, every day can be pretty unpredictable.
Yeah. And I think that unpredictability is that flexing that problem solving muscle that as an entrepreneur you're kind of looking for.
Yeah. I love the diversity. I wouldn't want to turn up every day and have the same thing. Yeah. You wouldn't choose every day that you have. And you wouldn't choose every issue that comes up either. It's still surprising, some things that pop up, but you have to just learn to deal with that. And if you don't know how to solve it, you just need to know who to go to help you to solve the problem.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, before we move on to the next business, I think that would be interesting to talk about. Just quickly, you touched on Facebook taking a page down. Do you know why that happened?
No, I still don't know.
Wow.
So it was really stressful because that was like, we just had this really sharp growth. I had a Facebook post go viral and then we launched a grants program. So our Facebook growth had grown like by 60% or something in a really short amount of time. Like, and I still don't know what made that post go viral. It was like this random, they say sometimes the things you spend the least amount of time on won't work. And that was true. Like this week I'd had gastro and our whole family had just had gastro. And I just launched this concept of the grant of the week. Like let's once a week, pick one grant and focus it on our social media page. And I got to Thursday morning, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't posted this grant still. I better find something. So I picked this grant, did a quick post, spent the least amount of time on it that I've probably done on any post. That was the post that went viral. Like hundreds of thousands of engagements and views. Like It was crazy. Yeah. And that was a huge turning point. And that was 2016 actually. So it was going back a bit further than I think now. But then then we gave out our first grant and then business awards. Like it was a really big growth year for us. But yeah, so then to wake up one day and they've just taken our Facebook page down was like an absolute killer.
Wow.
And
yeah.
It didn't matter what support desk I contacted, what forms I filled in, what community guidelines I read. We hadn't breached anything and no one would reverse the decision. Like it was a good 4 to 6 weeks that it was down for. And your Facebook is all based on engagement and posting, and that stopped. So ever since then, our growth has been slow on Facebook, but is what it is. I thought one day I'd tried every other avenue, and I'm like, in whose best interest is it if our Facebook page is reinstated? And I thought it's got to be the advertising people, because we'd spent money on advertising. Like they could see our history of spend. We'd already spent a few $1,000s by that point. I'm like, maybe I'll contact the advertising team and see if they want to reinstate our Facebook page. Lo and behold, less than 24 hours later, they had it back up again. Like,
Wow.
no explanation. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. They, you know,
Wow.
clearly they
continue
could
to
see a
spend
lost
money.
business opportunity there. Let's reinstate their Facebook page. But
Jesus.
yeah,
Yeah.
so random, and I still don't know why it happened. But that's not uncommon. You'll hear of people where that happens, and it could be their Insta profile, or it could be all sorts of things. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. There's some algorithm in the background that's highlighting things and kicking them out. Yep.
yeah, with no explanation, and it literally is just wake up one day and it's gone. There's no notice, there's no warnings. But it's a
Does that-
reminder to make sure you've got multiple ways to communicate with your members and multiple lead generation streams, whether that's ads or LinkedIn or other socials or your list, whatever it is.
Yeah. And that just puts all your focus on that one problem at that point in time, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
Would we like to talk about Hey Good Thing now?
Yeah, I think we have to.
Yeah. Would you like to do the same? Just a bit of an explanation about Hey Good Thing and what you guys are doing there, because it's great.
Yeah.
So as I said, I like new things. And by last year, I was definitely ready to start something new and just stretch myself in business. Like people have sometimes said to me, I could be a business consultant, but I feel like I have this narrow experience, which is good for niche, but I wanted to understand a physical product-based business and inventory and shipping, not just know a digital product that's SaaS. So I also had a problem the previous year. We wanted to send Christmas gifts to our team at the Grants Hub, and I wanted to find something that was really meaningful that maybe represented the members that we have at the Grants Hub. I'm always saying to people they should, again, have diverse revenue streams. So don't just rely on grants, like sell products, or, there's other ways that you can raise money as a not-for-profit. So I thought I couldn't find anything that was really, easy to find for gifts for our team. So I could see that problem sitting there, threw it around with a few different people, and one who had worked up quite high up in the gifting space. And she said, that's definitely a good idea. Like, to bring together social enterprise and for-purpose products into one gift box that is a social enterprise itself. Like, that's a really good solution to the problem. So I launched Hey Good Thing, which is all for-purpose gift boxes. So exactly that. It's social enterprise, for-purpose, and B Corp certified products in gift boxes. So I just launched it in September last year, I think was the first bit. So I did a Christmas lot, and then that's definitely been quieter this year because I just haven't had enough time to put into it. Other things have been busier than I was thinking. But yeah, it's a cool little business, definitely a side hustle at the moment, definitely a side project, but super fun.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some awesome stuff. I went through it the other day, just to have a look at everything. It's I think if this podcast had employees, we'd be using Hey. I'll buy you a gift box.
I know what I'm going to be getting for Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to get some more Christmas stocking because Christmas last year was fantastic. Like first year was really good. And it's amazing. Like for me, it's the stories behind it too. Like my real driver in business is like probably one of my strongest giftings is giving, like, and generosity. Like I love to give money. Like earning money doesn't really excite me apart from the fact that I can give more money. That's really the only thing that interests me. Or being able to buy great coffee. I like that too. Or a good coffee machine. Those things are nice, but it's really the for-purpose side and being able to give more or give back is my motivator. So Hey Good Thing is all of that. Like the people I buy every product from has got great stories and purpose behind what they do. And they're solving either environmental problems or disability employment or autism employment or clean water, rubbish in the oceans. There's a whole range of amazing things that these products are supporting.
Yeah.
And I've found it awesome just looking through the website and whatnot, and you've got, this is what you're supporting when you buy this product. And I think that's, you don't see that anywhere else in terms of the impact that you're having when you spend money there is more than just, giving a box of cool stuff. There's
that's it.
Impact.
It's like this product, like every gift gets the card in it, which you can see on the website what the gift supports. So, when someone opens the gift, they can see, this gift supports autism employment, clean water projects overseas, or provision of toilets, or whatever that gift is, getting Indigenous products into Australian kitchens. That comes inside the gift on a little card.
That's awesome. we were talking a little bit before we started about a lecturer that I have that said entrepreneurial mindset is exploiting problems. And I think exploiting is a dirty word. Might not be a dirty word if you want to make millions and millions of dollars, but I don't think that's the end goal. And then you threw the word in for purpose, entrepreneurialism, which I hadn't heard before.
Yeah.
Or I hadn't really thought about it that way in terms of fulfilling a purpose and that being your driving factor for building something.
Yeah.
Is that something? It's obviously something that is the driving factor for both the Grants Hub and Hey Good thing. Is there that big push within both businesses for you with people that you're hiring or people that are consulting with you to make that the focus for them? Is that this is why we're doing it and that's why we're getting out of bed in the morning to come and work?
I think Hey Good thing is still just all me. Like it's really, really tiny. So that's more what you would see on the website. You can tell that's for purpose, socials, whatever that is. At the Grants Hub, so an interesting stage of business growth is when you're moving from startup to small business and then a well-established business. Because when you're the founder, and then when Justin came on, my husband, like he came on a few years into the business, but had obviously seen it and understood it. And we have shared values, my husband and I, like not every married couple does, but we do. So that was an easy, like, hey, these are our values and this is why we do it. It was when we started getting more employees that you go, how do we ensure that the brand maintains its originality and its core purpose? And then how do those values continue to be instilled across the team and shared? Like when our team members are communicating or responding to customer support tickets in Zendesk, or whether they've got the blurb in the grant highlight that goes out to 25,000 people this week, how do we ensure that those values are happening across the team still? And so that's something that, as I said, I'm not a systems person. That's what Justin, my husband, is very good at. So he's like operations manager, and he, has developed workplace culture. I can't even think of what the document is called because it's been on since I started. But it's like the operations team guidelines, and it's workplace culture, and it's all of those things. We do it through interview processes. This is who we are, what we're about. And to us, it's not just our outward facing values, like our values are listed on our website, but it's not just an outward facing thing for us. What happens inside the team is exactly the same. So when we say generosity, that's not just about us giving out grants and other private donations that we give out throughout the year. It's also about being generous to our team members. So, when our strategic team hits some great goals, or whether it's been a massive month and we're like, hey, they've worked hard, we send them vouchers that they're not expecting, or we might deliver donuts to developers. Love donuts. So we might deliver, donuts to the developer when they've had to pull big hours or solve some big glitch. Generosity is a classic where you can do that in your team, and then that kind of flows out across your team as well. But making sure when you're growing a business that you've thought about how will your core values continue when you're not the one in control of everything is super important.
Yeah. And for you guys, I mean, your core values is your selling point, I guess, is that we will, work hard on these values and create that community around those values, because I mean, that's why people will come to you guys instead of other offerings. Yeah.
Hopefully. And we talk about them in Slack too, that we use Slack for communication. So it might be, it could be excellence, or it could be flexibility, or whatever it is, those things come up in conversations. And being down to earth is not a value of the team. It's one of my values. Like being real is one of my personal values that I have across all my businesses that I'm involved in. And it's like, hey, let's be real on some of this stuff. Like, keep the workplace lighthearted. We're fully remote. Like, having a workplace culture that's really healthy when it's been always a remote team, not just a COVID remote team. It's just the way we work. It's sharing giffies, it's sharing good things, it's sharing bad things, it's sharing that, I don't know, the prep kids just come home and said some very funny little comment. It's like sharing that stuff. We can do that in online businesses and face-to-face, I think.
Yeah. And What's interesting as well is listening to you talk about, I guess, your husband strategizing a little bit more about how you can develop that workplace culture, but balancing that with like natural relationship with your employees and, well, with your colleagues. How do you strike that balance? Because I think a lot of people think of it either one of two ways, either a strategy or just a relationship that happens. How do you sort of build on those relationships but work towards like a deeper purpose for your business?
So relationships with the team.
Yeah, with your team, yeah.
That's what he's excellent at. So he needs to be here to answer that question. Yeah, but like he is excellent. So Justin does all it might be we don't call it performance review meetings, but it could be regular catch-ups, or it could be getting alongside people. It's knowing when they're online. You can tell if someone's a bit down online still. I don't think that makes any difference whether someone's face-to-face or on a camera. There's a whole range of things that if we're really in tune with our team and our employees, and also for me, like when you're at the top of the organization, no one else is really supporting you. So it's, and I can see that now with Justin, like when you're in that position, because I've been in that position, like there aren't really other people that support the top person necessarily. Like most places, it's usually from the top supports down. That's just a common thing. That's how people work. But for me, it's also looking at Justin and going, hey, I reckon he could use a pick me up this week. And it's, it's making sure he's getting looked after as the person who's running the team as well. So that it's this whole like team approach. Sometimes you do it well. Like we always try and do it well, but sometimes it doesn't work either. Despite your best intentions, you still have things that go wrong, or you have, people that get offered great new roles, and that's awesome for them. That's part of flexibility, reliability, supporting people at doing what they're best at. So yeah.
Awesome. I would be interested to talk about startup phase, because that's not something that a lot of people are going to experience.
They're probably very smart.
Yeah. And I mean, the majority of the population, come out of school, either do university or go straight to work. And then if they come out of university, go to work for someone else. I don't think there's many people that are
brave enough
to create or naive enough, maybe.
In our case.
Probably both.
Yeah, to just jump in the deep end, and say, I'm going to give this a crack and see where it goes. And I'd be really interested to maybe not the startup story, but some of the things that you found were challenging, some of the things that were good in that startup phase for you.
The startup stage is very messy, gritty, exhausting, thrilling, motivating, gut-wrenching, disappointing. It's all of it. It's like every emotion, because I've done it multiple times now, every emotion is in existence with everyone that I've started. It's except maybe like biscuits and lollies when I was in high school. They were easy. Maybe I should get back to that.
Gut wrenching, getting the chocolate on the snow.
True. I know. Getting shut down in business. That was gut wrenching. The startup stage, look, it's definitely not for everyone. And I was reminded of that last year starting up Hey Good Thing again, because you do forget. If anyone is listening who has ever had a baby, I'll spare you guys the details, but you do forget what it's like going through labor, and then you go and do it again. And then it's very much like that with starting a business, I think, because the startup stage is very, very difficult and you don't get paid. Like you get income if you have a business that's hopefully bringing in any income and revenue, but you don't actually make any profit at the beginning. Usually
you're putting it all back in the business anyway.
Constantly. I've always reinvested it constantly back in anyway. And I think that's probably why they've worked, the businesses, but I've had other ways to live on. Like for the Grants Hub, we just lived off Justin's teaching wage. So we just stripped back life expenses and lived off that, which took all the pressure off the Grants Hub having to make money really quickly. And we could make it viable. And again, with Hey Good Thing, now I can live off the Grants Hub while I'm starting Hey Good Thing. So that's worked really well. But it's yeah, the startup stage is exhausting. I definitely wouldn't recommend it for anyone. Like not for everyone. You have to have a lot of resilience and stickability and belief in yourself, which changes throughout the day. Sometimes you can go from thinking, this is great, this is going really well, to then next minute going, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I have no idea how to solve this problem. That happened to me this week with Hey Good Thing. I've got this message from Australia Post saying one parcel arrived empty. So the whole parcel's disappeared out of the mailing packet. And I'm like, wow. I don't even know how to solve that problem. Like, I literally don't know how to solve that problem. It's like, I guess I just send them another box. I don't know. Like, it's just, you know, you're coming across things like that all the time. And that's a classic example of what happens in the startup phase of business. I wrote a blog post, I think it was a couple of years ago, and reflecting on some of those startup things and the lessons from it. And that was like, you've got to know your why. Like, if you lose sight of your why, of why you've started this, it's going to be a tough road. Like, you've got to keep it front and center all the time, through the development stage before you launch, when you're growing, when an employee resigns, when you have a really great growth month, when all the time you have to keep your why front and center, because I think otherwise you can lose heart or lose sight of what you're aiming for. Knowing your values and sticking to them is really, really important. Growing a team who's better than you. So, like what you guys are saying you're doing with this podcast, well, I would dispute that because I'm on here. Interviewing people that might know more about you in certain areas of life. That's really important. Be willing to learn, like constantly learn and ask questions, whether it's books or podcasts or whatever it is. Like, keep learning and adapting.
Yeah, I was going to go exactly there with your why. There's a lot of advice out there that says if you're going to start something just in the hopes of making a heap of money, then you're probably going to struggle, because there's a lot of times where you're not going to make much money at all, and you've got to have something else that's pushing you towards that.
And money for me is kind of futile. Like, it can come and go. Like, we need a certain amount of money, but we can't hold on to it. I mean, you look at the markets now. If our whole happiness is based off money, you'd be struggling a lot mentally at the moment, because this is very uncertain times. And I think we still want to make sure we're charging good money for things and not undervaluing our services. And I think it's great to earn money, to give money, to have, healthy business principles and healthy relationship with money, not being afraid of it, but don't base your happiness on money, because that just changes. And again, the same as giving, I just think it's important to give when you've got a little bit or give when you've got a lot. Like, those things to me shouldn't change. I think that would be a difficult mindset to go into business with, because there just is a lot of the time that you're not paying yourself. And my principle is, and Justin's the same, we pay our employees before we would pay ourselves. So there's been weeks where it's like, okay, we won't take pay this week, we'll just pay our employees. Like, you do that. That's what you have to do as the owners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, getting into you and Juz being in business together, how does that operate? Because a lot of people say don't mix family and business. How does that work for you guys?
Yeah. They're right. And both of us would say that. So I'm very happy to give you an honest answer, because both of us say the exact same thing. We sort of didn't intend to do that. And we've always said you should never work with family, like all your 101. So I started it with my brother. And that worked super well. So Owen and I actually work really well together. He's not at the Grants Hub now, but he's been involved for a long time still. Like, if we want his input on different things, he's an amazing resource, because he works at Shopify quite high up over in Canada. So his experience in the online space is super valuable to us. In terms of working with your partner, neither Justin or I would recommend it. You can make it work, and we make it work, but you have to work through that a lot.
And you have to spend time working out how to make it work too, I guess. Yeah.
And we haven't always done it well. Like, now we've worked out ways that you keep it separate. So we've split our jobs. Like, when we split our jobs, that was really good. It's more just, there's a lot of crossover. And we were just talking about this last night. We work together, we employ people together, we manage this thing together. we've got 3 kids, so we're running a family together, we're running a house together, we pay the bills together, like everything's together. Like, and then you're married and you still want to have your own, like a date night or whatever it is, and not talk about work the whole time. It's a constant challenge. And we've got really different skill sets. So, you know, me being the starter and him ops, on paper, really, it works really well. It's just that it's a lot of work to make it work.
Yeah.
Do you have sort of rules that you follow in terms of, you know, we're going out for dinner tonight, we won't talk about the business? Do you,
it lasts
like,
for about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
And that's when you know, though, you're like, we need to find other things to do together, because you talk about kids or work, like you just do. So that's something that I think it's constantly something we need to keep working on. But we have a lot of shared interests too. Like we both love going out for coffee. Like there's things that we do together that aren't work related, and we do work really well together. But there's definitely, you know, that's taken work. It's taken a lot of hard conversations and a lot of honesty and a lot of learning, a lot of adapting, a lot of listening to each other. Getting input from other people. Like that's something that, like, you know, we wouldn't do it again. And we both want to have our own interests to pursue as well.
Yep.
Awesome.
Well, you've talked about your passion not being money, but obviously you've talked about a little bit about coffee, and you've talked about you've talked about giving as well. What about moving away from Justin, but just the kids and family? How do you balance that with a business as well?
I actually feel like it's been, like, a lot of people say to me, I don't know how you do it, but for me, I don't know how I would do it if I was in a standard 9-to-5 employee job, because this allows us flexibility. And that's one of the major perks of Justin and I working together, is that we both can take, well, it's difficult for both of us to take holidays, but we're both, you know, we've both got the flexibility. So for me, again, starting something that was remote, it was when Georgie was 1 and I was pregnant with Tom, our second, that I launched the Grants Hub. So it was definitely based around family values and wanting to be there, be available, be at their school camp, not their camps, their excursions if we want to be, or assemblies or dress up days or whatever it is. Like, we've been to all of those things because of the Grants Hub and the flexibility and the remote workplace. It's more, we find when we've got a busy period, we've both got the same busy period at work. So you don't get the one stressed and one can back the other person a bit more and cover the other person. It's like we've both got the stress at the same time. But yeah, in terms of family, we love it. And we've done 2 East Coast trips of Australia in caravans while working. We've been to Canada for 5 or 6 weeks and kept working over there. Like, that's with the kids. So the flexibility is amazing.
That's awesome.
And living in Queensland now as well, and working, you know, from Victoria to Queensland, that's so much easier than it would be for any other person to just, you know, I'm going to quit my job here, I'm going to apply for a job here that I'm hopefully going to love, but, you know, you can just continue with what you're doing, which is great.
Yeah, it's been great. And that was through COVID that we moved up here. So during the second lockdown, we were in Victoria, New South Wales for a holiday. And second lockdown kicked in, and we just thought, why would you go back? And everyone back there was saying, don't come back. We were living in Berwick, so in Melbourne, like the metro area. So it was much stricter rules as well. And friends there were saying, don't come back. So we waited until they made a decision on schooling, because if school goes back, then we'll go back. Like, if school goes back face to face. But when they made a decision to go back to online learning, we thought, why would we go back? Like, it's online learning. We have an online business. We were just renting a house. So friends packed that house up for us and put it into storage. And then we traveled the East Coast and then ended up settling on the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then dragging the rest of your family up there.
I know. So now, mum and dad are up here, and my other brother, not Owen, but Paul, my other brother, and his wife, they were meant to be traveling Australia in 2020 when COVID hit. They ended up in Port Douglas and stayed around that area for quite a long time, and then ended up settling here as well. So we've kind of all ended up in this same area.
Found a new home.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a good place to live.
Yeah. I've yeah, I've got a girlfriend that says one day that's where we'll be regardless, I think. at least for a period of time. Yeah. I'd be conscious of time, but I'd be interested to have a chat about writing and podcasting. Maybe not in a sense of, well, possibly partly driving traffic towards the Grants Hub, but also just as a creative outlet and as, you know, I mean, there's all of this. You've got to have an online presence. You've got to be making and whatnot. And just, you know, how that helps you, if it's an outlet for you and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah. Writing for me is something I would love to be doing more of, but sometimes they're the things that get pushed to the back burner with all the other things going on. But yeah, that's definitely a creative outlet for me. You do get that sort of professional, as you say, you kind of do need an online presence. I need to get better at that and invest more in that. Like my own, it's just not me, but you know, you kind of need to do it, like build your own online presence. I feel it's like this conflicting, like, it feels weird to do that, but yeah, at the same time, it kind of goes part and parcel with being an online business. But yeah, so writing is one. The podcast, that was the Grants Uncovered podcast. So hopefully launching season 2 soon of that. But I loved doing that last year. That was really good. Yeah, the writing itself started more when Tom got really sick. So my second child was born with a serious heart condition. He's had a couple of open heart surgeries, and that's a lifetime thing for him. So writing was just a way of like getting it out, or like reflecting on it and putting it up on a blog and just our experience. And then like now I quite enjoy writing about business and other topics too.
Yeah.
So that's all on like my jessieballantyne.com blog. And yeah, otherwise the Grants have a lot of the content there now gets written by other people, not by me. But,
yeah. One more thing that'd be interesting is looking at numbers, because I find with the small amount of people that listen to this, I will open
huge
websites,
amounts, millions of listeners,
millions of listeners across the world.
I'll check the numbers more than I should, and I think that's multiplied by many factors for you with your businesses and with your own presence.
Yeah.
Do you not look at numbers until it's time to do a quarterly review? Do you look at numbers every day? Do you, how do you manage that? And I guess probably some of the stresses that would come with that as well.
That's a really great question. I love the numbers. So, and when you work with live numbers, like analytics, when we send out big email campaigns, numbers are they're quite addictive. But in a good way. And you start to learn pretty quickly, okay, that email worked or it didn't work in terms of either conversion or reach or whatever your goal is for that particular email. There's also Stripe we use for credit card processing. That's very fun to watch because we're on a continual growth curve. If our numbers were down, I don't think I would check the numbers as much as what I do, but we're on this constant, really, really strong growth curve.
Yep.
Yeah. And that has slowed slightly over the last couple of years, but more it's still crazy growth numbers. It's just reflective of what we expect the numbers to do. Really strong numbers across the board. It doesn't matter which numbers we look at, they're all up. So yeah, I think if they were down, I wouldn't check it all the time. That wouldn't be good for your mental health. And you've got to learn what's good for you or not good for you. But numbers in online business, if you're a numbers person, you would love online business because there you can just do numbers till your heart's content. And I don't do all of them, like the operations team. So Justin and the marketing person and grant strategist and ads, they all do a lot of different numbers to me. I more look at the bigger picture numbers. Whether that's conversions or the number of people on free trial, acquisition, email engagement, Stripe, all of those are the numbers that I look at. Yeah.
And I sort of assume it's this black and white feedback loop of, like you were saying, this didn't work. We've got dreadful numbers on this marketing campaign or something. What did I do differently and what do I need to change, or what has just made this, maybe not so much of that Facebook post that blew up there might not sometimes.
There's no
that's
logic
just
to
random.
that, and we haven't been able to replicate it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess it is. You're right, for that analytical mind. It's just this feedback loop that says this is how you need to change and adapt. Yeah.
Yeah, and also celebrate the good numbers. So we can end up in this cycle of we need to grow the numbers. Like, it needs to be more, it needs to be bigger. But like, hey, let's celebrate this. Like, these are amazing growth numbers. That email campaign reached this many people, or we know that all these extra people have found that grant because of the email that we sent out, or that organization's now got funding because of the work that we've done, or, you know, whatever it is. There's different ways we can celebrate the numbers that we've got. Even if you have a month that's harder, like, still credit the team for all the work that they do, despite the numbers that might look lower. Like, and sometimes, ironically, it can actually be a strategy to have lower numbers one month because you know that you might be working towards a sale, or we only do 2 sales per year, but you can, you know, there's different numbers that are good for different stages or different moments in the business too. Yeah. But yeah, numbers in SaaS is a fascinating area.
Yeah. We'll get into some questions that people sent in just, I've got one more question before we get there, or one more bit. Do you want to give a bit of a plug for how grants are coming to life after COVID, and where the opportunities are there? Because I assume there's a lot of grants that would have been scheduled for public services that people just couldn't access during lockdown and whatnot. And that's all coming back now, especially in Victoria. What can people do with grants? How can they, what can they utilize now that we're getting back to life that's pretty normal here?
Yeah. Grants has been really interesting over the last couple of years. So the beginning of 2020, things shifted majorly because of the bushfires. Like, that was actually 2020. And then, so there was all that big campaign fundraising. A lot of grant funders shifted their funding into bushfire funding. So for some community-based projects, that money got moved out of their normal pool and put across to bushfires. There's pros and cons with that methodology. Then 3 months later, we had COVID. So that, some funders kept their programs going as normal. Like, we still saw really good grant numbers in terms of the actual number of grants open and available at the time, but there were major shifts in the type of grants. A lot of organizations were really hit the hardest if they based their revenue heavily on fundraising and events, because all of those things got cancelled. So there might have been grants available, but you think if you were running a marathon as your major fundraiser for the year, everything got cancelled for that. So there's major flow-on effects for charities and not-for-profits in that sort of area. Grants, we're seeing now returning back to more normal numbers again and more normal programs again. Quite a lot got suspended over the last 2 years, and some funders genuinely needed to stop their grants programs, and some took that chance to review their programs and improve them. Other funders, unfortunately, chose to use COVID as an excuse to pause their grants program for a couple of years, and didn't keep them going. But, there's still a great range of grants that have been available that whole time. But yeah, it's exciting now with things just getting back more into normal and more continual funding rounds and things happening. There's a lot opening at the moment. Yeah. As I was saying earlier, there's over 1,500 grants open all the time on the Grants Hub. So, you can log in there. There's a 14-day free trial. So you can log in and see if it's useful for you or if there's funding available, and set up some alerts. So, you can just put in your own specific criteria. Like, you might be in Victoria or in a sporting club and you want to, just receive grants information for that. And you'll receive emails anytime there's a deadline change or a new grant or a closed grant round or whatever it is. It'll come into your inbox. Yeah. But yeah, there's always grants available for any sector.
Yeah. Yeah. That is awesome.
Okay. That was a great plug.
That was a very good plug. Yeah, that's what we want.
Better do the sales plug.
No, that's it.
Just a few questions we've had. We'll say we're picking 3.
Now, some of my friends, actually, I didn't see that until one of my friends put it in one of our friends groups. They're like, "Oh, I'm looking forward to this." See if they put through any questions. Be able to tell.
We've got a few. One question from a personal friend of ours.
Mm-hmm.
Any tips for starting a small baking business? Yeah.
With an emoji after it.
With an emoji after it.
With one of these ones. Yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting because before Hey Good Thing, I actually had in development a baking business. So
Wow.
I sorry. I was going to sell baking mixes. So that was the plan before COVID hit. And then COVID hit and I'm like, this does not work with COVID business. So that person, if they want to inbox me, feel free to like get in touch on Insta or something, and it'd be interesting to find out more about what they're doing. Because I've done like costings and sourcing of bags and packaging and all the works.
Wow.
Because I just love baking, and it was just going to be something totally different, more as a side hustle than a big major like corporation.
And rehashing those childhood memories.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I actually really love cooking and baking. And I thought if I could turn this into something, I think I might enjoy that and something a bit more hands-on. But yeah, part of me still wants to do it because I've got like the logo, like it's all sitting there. The company name is all there, like it's all there. But but the baking businesses, that's cool. I think you would just want to make sure you've done your market research and your costings. That was another reason I put it on pause, because with the model I was going to go with, I worked out I wouldn't be able to make enough if I was wholesaling.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah. We know the person that asked that question well. They will either be emailing you or DM you.
Can guarantee you.
Yeah, can guarantee.
Yeah.
I'll find out who it is.
Next one, which we've touched on a little bit. How do you balance writing, podcasting, business, family, and a relationship?
Maybe two good tips.
Two good tips. Okay, so my first, like naturally, I don't like talking about myself very much, but I would normally go like, oh, not very well. But I think there are times when we do it well, and there's other times when I do it not so well, and I need to learn from those times. But I think across the board, I've done it fairly well, because I'd be most proud of our family that we've got, and the fact that I'm still married and we've got a great relationship after all of the things we've done. So I think balancing it, you've got to have boundaries. And for me, I've sacrificed business growth and opportunities with business, particularly around face-to-face conferences or speaking or things like that, over family. Like I've put the family first, because to me, that's my number one. So you've got to know what's your number one and work down from there. Like I think that's just crucial. I would say that. And then like also if, say for me, it's been burnout, like if you're someone who's juggling a lot of balls, you have to be really aware of burnout and the risks of it. And if or when you hit it, learn from it and change what you can.
Yep.
Awesome.
Those are two great tips.
I
think they're probably good for personal life.
I think the burnout one is good for you, Mr. Doing a lot of things. Mr. Running on 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Next one. The last one. Most impactful podcasts you've listened to and books that you've read. Now that's going to be interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah.
This is my favorite question.
I should have had the list. That's a good question.
Open the list up if you want. We can
wait.
Take your time.
Take your time.
If there's a list that's going to help,
open up
do
my podcast app. So my favorite, or one of my favorites, is one of your favorites as well, because you've spoken about it, and that's The Imperfects.
Oh,
I think that's just an amazing podcast.
It is.
If you haven't listened to that yet and you like long form podcasts, then go and listen to it. If you don't like long form, just go and at least listen to one or two, because I think they're really valuable and really good podcasts. I actually really enjoy Mia Friedman's podcast, Unfiltered, I think it's called, where she interviews people. And they're a lot shorter, so 30 to 40 minute interviews. She asks great questions, and you get to know this side of people that you just would never otherwise hear about. Like I listened to Anthony Albanese's interview that she did after he got elected as Prime Minister, and she'd interviewed him prior to the election, and I just didn't know a lot about him. That was really amazing, like to listen about his childhood, and he never knew who his father was. And like it was just amazing about his upbringing. And yeah, that's one I really love as well. There's a bunch of great business ones, but I kind of do change my podcasts all the time too. This is a brand new one, One Wild Ride. So I've only listened to one episode of that one, but there's a plug for them. She's quite well established, but she interviews business founders all in the for-purpose space about how and why they've done what they've done.
Nice.
Wow.
You'll be on that soon enough.
Unlikely. Let's see. Books. Oh, I love books. Like, I have just a big collection of books. I like to read a variety of things, everything from business to psychology to just fiction. Fiction for reading, and it just takes me out of my own world, like random fiction that doesn't mean anything in my own life. Like, it's quite relaxing, probably like Netflix for me. There's some really great business books. I'm trying to think. They're not in this room. The Start With Why, that's a really good one. There's the Entrepreneur's Roller Coaster. I read that a while ago. I remember that being really, really good. I'm currently reading Power by Kemi. She was on The Imperfects. I can't remember her surname. That's really good. There's a bunch. There's so many great books. I should put a list up on my socials or my blog one day. But
if you do, we'll link to it.
Yeah, there you go.
There's probably the last thing. Give us the plug for where everything is, where people can find you and follow you. Yeah, all the things.
Okay, so me, that's jessieballantyne.com. So Jessie, or you'll have it in the show notes. So I'm assuming Ballantyne with a B for Bob. We always have to say it's not Valentine like Valentine's Day. So that's mine. I've just moved websites around, but hopefully all the links are working on the current one. And you'd find links to my Insta and Facebook and LinkedIn off there. For the Grants Hub, it's all found at thegranthub.com.au, or all the socials for that are just at the Grants Hub. And then Hey Good Thing is heygoodthing.com.au, and all the socials again are at Hey Good Thing.
Beautiful.
And get ready for Grants Uncovered season 2.
Grants Uncovered. And that's, I've saved their own social names for that, but I might just put it under something I've already got, so I don't have to manage another social account. But Grants Uncovered season 2. That's it. So that's on Apple, wherever you listen to your podcasts. It's on all of them. That's Grants Uncovered.
And leave nothing but 5-star reviews, please.
That would be great.
The other ones don't count.
Both ways. For these guys too, leave them 5-star reviews. They're doing great stuff.
Well, thank you very much, Jessie. This has been incredible.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me. It's been really enjoyable. Loved it.
Thanks for listening to the podcast this week. We hope you've learned something valuable.
Follow along and connect with us on social media at Not Bad Better.
We'd love it if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts, either in the app or on their website if you don't have an iPhone.
Have a great week. We'll see you next time.